Welcome back to the At Home with Roby show. I'm Ashley Davis along with Trent Haston. We're your hosts. We're glad you're spending your Sunday morning with us. Whether you're in the car or on the couch, you're always at home with Roby. Visit us today at andrewroby.com, or you can always click on the At Home with Roby tab at wbt.com to learn more. Trent, before the break, we talked about wine rooms, getting that set up, wine storage maybe in your kitchen if you don't have room for a specific wine room. We're now joined by Rob Rondelay from Rhino Market and Deli down on Moorhead Street, just down the street from WBT here and down from our office. Rob, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
So it's the holidays. Everybody wants maybe a glass of wine. New Year's is coming up next week. Everybody wants a glass of champagne. Let's talk a little bit about what should we put in these fridges now that we've got them?
Well, there's certain temperatures for certain wines. The colder a fridge can hold your burgundies, your sparklings, your whites, and some of your nicer reds can be outside of the wine fridge area. But yeah, I mean, most of the fridge space should be for the whites, the sparklings, maybe burgundies.
Keep it cold.
Keep it cold.
Absolutely.
And there's a temperature, like I think it's 52 is
right.
What you want in the fridge. And then outside the cellar should still be cool, obviously.
So I've been in a lot of wine cellars. We've built a lot of wine cellars. Never really paid attention to the details. Is 52 degrees what a wine cellar is supposed to be set at?
I would say so. Because those wines, if you have back vintages of wine, it needs to be at a steady temperature the whole time and laid down on its side and, temperature controlled for sure.
Yep.
My favorite wine cellars that we build are the ones that are submerged, buried in the ground,
Even better.
Under a house.
Even better. That's what vineyards do.
That's
they bury
origination of the wine.
Absolutely. So. I was in a couple weeks ago. I was up in Asheville. I went to the winery at Biltmore, and it's the old dairy barn they use there for their winery. And you go down in the basement, kind of it looked like catacombs, and they've got vintage wines down there that they've got stored
cement
underneath. Oh, all brick and cement.
All brick and cement,
thing.
which is the most
cool.
ideal.
I mean, you go down there, it feels like you kind of walked into a little bit of a conditioned space, but clearly it's not.
Yeah.
So Rob, I want to talk a little bit of shop. Rhino Deli, big fan of cool businesses, successful businesses on the West Moorhead corridor. How long you been there?
We've been there for just over a year. November 22nd of 14 is when we opened.
And I told you before the show that I've stopped in and bought a 6-pack of some good craft beer and stuff like that. I think you got a great selection.
Appreciate it.
I have not eaten there, but just in the last couple of weeks, everybody tells me that your deli food is great.
Well, that was the goal for this store. The beer and wine portion is a necessity for the area because they didn't have that portion for the residential. Didn't have beer and wine retail. But the food part was even more critical for me because I wanted people from other side of town to come to my store for the food. They might not buy the beer and wine there because they have a place to purchase it on their side of town, but the food needed to be upgraded, specialty sandwiches and soups and all homemade, and that was a big thing for me.
Man, making me hungry. Well, what is the trend in the craft beer, the fancy beer everybody's into? I used to think what is the champagne of beers? Is that Michelob? I thought
that's
that was
Miller
fancy.
High Life. We do sell
Miller
High
Life.
Miller High Life.
Vintage fancy, but I used to think that was fancy, but now I know there's so many different types of hops and beers and.
Well, Trent, I mean, the trend is just up. It's just craft beer has taken over, and the girls who used to drink wine are drinking craft beer now, and that's a big. And then we have new breweries in Charlotte popping up every 2 months.
Do you carry local Charlotte beer,
sure
Charlotte brewed beer in your store?
And we have to always consider and forecast for the new breweries that are coming out with new packaged beers and can in the bottle, and we have to figure out to find space for all of that.
Let's speak about that. You were talking also during the break what we're seeing the trend in a lot of wine rooms and wine enthusiasts now. They need to cater to their guests, and the guests are drinking craft beer. You said the women that used to be into wine are now switching over and they're into craft beer.
For sure.
And you're seeing a segment of a wine room or a wine cellar or a wine refrigerator be converted to store beer.
I think it's totally cool,
beer.
and it totally makes sense because you got a temperature-controlled good beer, too. And we're not talking about the champagne of beers, Miller High Life.
No,
I'm sorry to say.
That was just a
that goes in the fridge.
We're talking about
that was a redneck joke.
We're talking about imperial stouts and big beers, Belgian beers that need to be temperature controlled and they have ageability.
I mean, I have actually seen in a lot of our projects folks that homebrew down in their cellar or their basement, and old houses in Belmont and Dilworth. I think Chris Maynard lives in an old house, a 1900s house in Belmont. He homebrews. He works with us, and he just put 2 taps out into his kitchen from his cellar.
Which is
nice.
That's
and he
so
switches
cool.
them out of his homebrew.
That is awesome. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the At Home with Roby show. You were talking today wine rooms, wine storage. We've shifted that to beer, putting beer in that wine room that you build. If you want to learn how to build a room like that, visit us today at andrewroby.com, or you can even give us a call at 704-334-5477. Rob, you made a comment, and I want to talk about you got some bottles of champagne and wine on the table here. I want to talk about those in one second, but you just said something I didn't know, that beer can age. You want to age beer? Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Anything that's barrel aged, any beer that's barrel aged has ageability. Belgian beers have ageability, and anything imperialized, so an imperial stout has ageability.
I was with somebody the other day that's into beer, and I told him I like a Chimay is a Belgium de Bale type beer, and they said get you a couple 6-packs of the blue and store them for years and years.
Huh. Yeah, it changes the complexity of it, just like wine. When you open a bottle of expensive wine, a couple years after its vintage, it's going to be good. 5 years after its vintage, it's going to be even better. And that's the same thing with beers. I've had some 5 to 7-year-old beers that were phenomenal.
Wow.
And they can age up to 20 to 25 years, depending on what kind of beer it is.
Had no idea. Okay, so we're going to shift from the champagne of beers to the champagne on the table. Tell us a little bit about what do you have here? What could people get last minute if they want to celebrate on New Year's Eve?
Well, I'm glad you said last minute because that's what I brought today. I brought bottles that are in the $13, $14 range that are just grab and go, phenomenal bubbles for parties. I bought a little Blanc de Blanc, which, if you don't like straight champagne, you can mix it with your peach nectar for Bellini, or you can mix it with orange juice for your mimosas. And then the Montan is just a brute and, just fun stuff. I don't think you have to get all crazy about champagne if, you're just popping it and drinking it before you get into your big reds and whatever else you're going to drink. But, our whole thing with Rhino Market and Deli is value and good, good wine for good value.
I mean, within the last year, right across from our office, right across the street, I think they just opened an apartment building that's 4 stories, has about 350 units. I'm sure that's really stuff like that's really helping the flow of business.
Those are all my
store.
customers, and I did forecast, and knew all these apartments were coming, and Mecklenburg County's coming down the street, and 600 people are coming into Old Charlotte School Law Building.
Yep.
So
I think they're there. I was
think
riding
they might
down
have moved in.
277
Yeah,
yesterday, and the parking lot was full.
I was coming to
Charlotte Law Building.
I was driving by there today. I saw the same thing. All right, so go ahead. Go ahead, Trent.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, let's give it because we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. Rob, tell the folks again how they can get in touch with you. Where's Rhino Market? What you're all about? Just maybe a 20-second elevator.
Oh, thanks. Rhino Market in Deli. We're at Freedom and Moorhead, right at the intersection. Specializing in craft beer, value wine, and that $10 to $20 pocket. Great breakfast in the morning. We have a breakfast burrito that we've been lauded for, and then great lunch. Homemade soups. Deli's open until 9 o'clock at night, so we have hot sandwiches that are good for beers at night. And,
Absolutely.
We're open all the time.
So if you haven't been down Moorhead corner of Moorhead and Freedom, it's a 4-way corner. You got a Wells Fargo Bank, you got a Dunkin' Donuts, you got Pinky's. which is an old school diner.
Yep.
Then you got the Burger Company, and then you got the Rhino Deli.
Yeah, we're in the same parking lot as the Burger Company.
And they're building a new apartment building right there where the Pterodactyl Club used to be.
That's old school.
For all you oldies.
I remember the
I
pterodactyl.
remember that too.
Rob, all right, but and speaking of value wines, I couldn't get out of this segment without what I buy from you every year, Mastanis, or as you like to call it,
Oh my God,
more donuts.
I totally forgot about more donuts.
That's my favorite red wine. It's like $13, $14.
Yep.
Get it every year. All right, swing by there. Rob, thanks so much for being
Thank
here.
you, Ash.
Thank you,
Thank
Rob.
you, Trent.
All right, folks, you're listening to the At Home with Roby show. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's andrewroby.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back.